Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 7th episode of what we are calling GSO's Ocean Classroom Live. This is a program that we've dedicated to connecting each of us a bit deeper to the ocean, to the engaging animals who live there, and the scientists who conduct critical research that broadens our understanding of the largest habitat on this planet. Welcome. All of us are here to have an engaging conversation with some really fun people, and especially to interact with you, our audience. So thank you for being here. My name is Alex DeCiccio. I am a media specialist at the Inner Space Center, which is located at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography. So I want to just stop for a second and encourage everybody to remember that this is an interactive program. So whichever platform that you are now watching us on, whether that's Facebook or YouTube, we encourage you to use it for what it's worth. Get social with this media, and while you're at it, we want to keep doing these programs. So we need you for that. We need your support, we need your interest. And when it comes to our ocean planet, that's really important that we all stay engaged with this type of subject matter. So please follow the page along on Facebook or subscribe if you're on YouTube. And with that interactive point, if you're lucky, you will see your questions and comments pop up here, and we'll address them, and you will help drive our conversation today with our two subject matter experts. Just want to pause for a second and thank our supporters for this. Today, our conversation is being supported by the Devereux Ocean Foundation, and we're so very grateful for their continued support with these programs. All right, so why not? Let's get right into it. Today's topic of discussion is Sharks 101. That's cool. That's why we're all here. We're fascinated by sharks. They've been around since the time of dinosaurs. They're which is cool. They're a source of scientific and pop culture fascination. But the question is, what do we really know about these animals? And better yet, what don't we know about these animals? I try to find that. I find that to be very fascinating about what don't we know. And to be honest, it might actually be more than you think. And a quick disclaimer, some of the media that we have on this program today might be a bit graphic and show imagery of large dissected fish, show the science in action. And we wanted to be deliberate about that because we want our audiences to know that science is more than just the white lab coat. There's more to it than that. So from that point on, I think enough from this guy here. I'm really excited to introduce our two guests for today. Both of them have had extensive experience in working with these incredible animals, and they happen to be rather intriguing characters as well. So first up is Dr. Lisa Natanson. She is a research fisheries biologist with NOAA who focuses on how sharks age and reproduce, as well as their movements in the ocean. And she actually works right across the street from us in Narragansett at the NOAA Fisheries lab in Rhode Island. Hello, Lisa.
Hey, Alex, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. It's so great to see you. I'm having fun too. I hope you are. So our other guest is Dr. James Sulikowski on the program today, and he's a marine biologist with over 25 years of experience working with sharks. He is from Arizona State University, and he focuses on shark life history. James, pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, so let's start with the really tough stuff, you two subject matter experts, you. James, I'm going to start with you here. And again, I hope you're ready for this. This is a tough one. So tell me, James, what is your favorite shark and why?
Well, that is a tough one. My favorite shark, actually, I can tell you what my second favorite shark is. Okay. The first favorite may have been taken by somebody, but that's okay. Second favorite, definitely tiger shark. Amazing animal. You can see it right here swimming around. That's about a 11, 12 footer. And if you ever seen one close up, they're absolutely incredible. I mean, their heads are like bulls. They have full of teeth, and just it makes you understand how sort of small and insignificant you really are in the water.
That's fantastic, James. By the way, when did you spark an interest in sharks? Does this go way back for you, or is this something that you decided in
as far as I can remember? If you pull the image of me up, I actually caught my first shark in the bathtub.
Hey.
It was pretty amazing. No one was bitten, which was good. So we all came out okay.
That's fantastic. So, okay, Lisa, next one for you. Same question. What is your favorite?
Perfect timing. Actually, my favorite changes a lot with what shark I'm working on. An angel shark will always be one of my top favorites, but my favorite overall, which I stole from James, is the poor beagle for a variety of reasons. One, I have done a lot of work on it. That's a mako, and I'm currently working on it with James, which is why I stole it from him. And there's a poor beagle right there. And of course it has the word beagle in it, which is always dear to my heart. So that's where I would go there.
And is that what we just heard saying hello as well?
Actually, that was a collie. Beagle was being quiet.
Yeah, okay. So I think, thank you both for that. If we can bring James back on, cool. So I think it's important that we sort of address something up front because there is some serious news to talk about, and maybe we could sort of meet this moment. But I wanted to just provide a space for each of you just to say a little something about the current news that are going on with the shark incident. So James, maybe we can start with you and just to kind of address the subject matter and talk about it from your professional perspective.
I mean, I think you're talking about the fatality that took place in Maine with the shark. Yeah, absolutely horrible, tragic, incident. And it's one that shocks everybody, right, when we see it. And people often, kind of wonder why. I mean, are there sharks, in Maine waters and whatnot? And the fact is, there's sharks all over the place. In fact, white sharks have been in Maine waters for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And if sharks were after us, as a food item, then I think over that period of our settlement, how long we've been living there, there've been a lot more of these mortalities. So people need to take away that sharks really aren't out there to get us.
Thanks, James. Lisa, anything to add?
Well, I pretty much, James said it all. We obviously have a lot of sympathy for the victim in this case, and certainly their family. It was a very tragic incident. But again, the sharks are in the area where we're seeing more of them because we're seeing more of their food source and they're coming in close. So people now have to have a better awareness than we used to have. And it's something we all have to get used to. So they were kind of there first. So
copy that. So there you have it, folks. There's something to just consider is just this awareness and to keep our awareness sort of active, especially when we're in waters where sharks are. And thank you for that. And so I think it'll be smart for us to kind of go to a question now. And I think I saw it pop up earlier, but it seems like, great, here we go. So let's start this conversation off with helping our audience drive our conversation. So Ryan Hickox from Libby Hickox, actually. Hello, Libby. How many sets of teeth do sharks have? Lisa, let's start with you.
Depends on the species, I think, how many are actually there in the jaw, but they keep regenerating teeth throughout their life. So in a sense, as long as they live, they're revolving teeth. And I can't say exactly how many. I know that in some of the sharks we've seen, they have at least, 7 to 10 rows of teeth at a time. But again, they keep rotating forward. James might have a more specific number.
Yeah, I mean, it varies, like Lisa said. But the cool part is you only see the first couple. Right. The other ones are buried, and you can imagine they're like an escalator, and they just keep rotating up, and so they lose, a row of teeth a month or maybe even more, and so they've always got these really nice sharp sets, which makes it really cool, and them great predators.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it must make them incredibly successful at what they do, hence why they've been around for so long. So this is fantastic. And everybody out there in the audience, please keep your questions coming. If you also want to write in your comments about which type of shark is your favorite shark, let's start collecting a bank right there, and maybe we'll just cycle through those and have fun with it later on. But please keep the questions coming because, again, you help drive this. You are part of this conversation. And in the meantime, Lisa, you have had, again, an extensive career working with these animals. And you're in your past, you've worked with, I don't know if the right term is top rated, but many sort of prolific shark researchers in your career. You've had personal experience with them and even becoming one yourself. when it comes to sharks and dogs and what we don't know about them, where does our collective knowledge base come from? How do you actually collect data for sharks?
Well, I'm lucky. I actually was able to start my career in a project that had an extensive database. Our project dates back to 1961. So I started out with a lot of samples that the previous researchers had collected. And we actually have a large cooperation. We have a cooperative shark tagging program, and we have about 7,000 people that tag for us and help us get samples. So it's kind of a citizen science type of situation for the tagging data. And we also work with commercial recreational fishermen. We will go to shark tournaments where they let us collect data from their catch. They will call us when they get interesting specimens so that we can get samples from those. We go out on their vessels with them, and we also have research cruises where we tag and also get specimens. So we kind of get specimens from as many different places as we can.
Fantastic. And James, how about you? You've also had an extensive career, sir, in studying these animals. And what are some of the key ways that you collect your research?
Yeah, I mean, Elise brings a really good point, and it's a lot of collaboration. Lisa and I work together. We have other researchers that work together. We work with the commercial and recreational fishermen. So it's a big kind of community almost to help us get our information. So a lot of my work is field-based. And so I go out with fishermen or on research cruises to actually handle these animals and see a little bit about their biology. And we're developing these non-invasive techniques. And so all the work that, you say these classically trained scientists, people who have gotten this great information like Lisa, we can use and build upon that and develop new ways of studying sharks without having to sacrifice them now.
Awesome. And is that spent a little bit of time here? Is that one thing that is a certain focus for shark research today? The sort of the techniques that are used.
Yeah, the sampling that I do, and that has, like you said, the traditional shark researcher has done, is a lot of what we call lethal sampling. So we need dead animals to see what we're looking at. Whether we take a shark vertebral column to determine the age of the shark, or we look at the reproductive condition to see the reproductive condition, take certain measurements. One of the things we've wanted to move away from is having to kill sharks. And we don't like to go out and necessarily kill shark. This was a shark that died on a research survey, and we were able to dissect it. So we use mortalities, which helps in terms of tournaments. Those fish were going to die, and we dissected them for science as well. Someone's going to use the fish for food, so we'll dissect it. But we're trying to move to methods where we can go out on the boat and catch a fish and bring it up. Maybe if you have a picture of the shark in the sling, bring it up where we can work on it. Like this shark had been brought up, measured, tagged, injected with tetracycline. Little piece of DNA was taken. You can do an ultrasound. So this non-lethal techniques. But one of the things we have to do is make sure that the non-lethal techniques that James is doing, like the blood hormones and muscle hormones and ultrasound, are the same result as the original techniques from the mortalities. So my career was based on the lethal sampling. Now James is trying to do non-lethal sampling, and we're overlapping our research and working together to ground truth these two methods. And then hopefully James will take off in his career and be able to do all this information without having to kill anything or deal with dead fish.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of jump in on that, if you want to pull up the Tiger boat ultrasound, like that kind of shows a little bit of what we do. And so people can get a kind of concept and idea of that process, right? And so we have the animal, it's still in the water, it's kind of flipping around. We've taken a bunch of measurements and whatnot. And now what we want to do is see if it's pregnant. And so we can do this with an ultrasound, just like a human would do, going to check on a woman checking on her pregnancy. And so it's a great way for us to get this information without having to kill these animals. And I mean, that's an 11-foot shark. You don't want to do that, particularly for endangered species or species that need our protection. And the cool thing, if you pull up that baby shark ultrasound, you can see exactly what we're kind of looking at.
Wow.
And you can see that's the little head. Now you can see its jaw. And we can count how many are in there. We can get sizes. And so we can get a lot of really cool information, which we can track back and see how it relates to what Lisa has collected in the past. And that's a really powerful when you look at moving this research forward.
That's fantastic. And I think that really adheres to this sort of today's theme of what we know, but what we actually don't know about sharks, and how these techniques are still being ground truth today in this, and really what seems like incredibly physical work that doesn't seem very easy to do for either of you. So but you can say whether it's easy or not.
No, I was going to say, it's not easy either way. When you do a dissection of a large shark or even a small one, it's physically very taxing. And just being out on the boat and trying to work under the conditions on the small boat that James showed, it does take effort.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely hard work.
So here we're seeing some of that work being done. And while we're looking at this, I think it's a good time to bring in another audience comment. And we got this one from, we're going to summarize here and kind of combine two of them that were sort of the same idea, from Annie Hanlon Mallon and from Priscilla Kania. Hope I'm saying that right. But this is about shark movement. So about shark behavior and has the migration patterns of these animals. And of course, we're talking about the larger sort of set of sharks in general, and you feel free to dive down into some specifics, but has the migration patterns changed due to ocean warming with effects and impacts of climate change? So have their patterns changed of how they move around in this ocean, in their home?
Well, this is a lot of the work we're working on. We have a tagging program going back for a long period of time. And now that we have data towards the time period when the temperature has increased, we can start looking at this. We have been looking at it in a couple of species. In a lot of cases, sharks are able to go over a large variety of temperatures. And because they're migratory, they can move to a temperature, even a depth that is better for them. But they are going to follow their prey. So if their prey's movements have been affected by climate change, their movements will be affected. And part of it is trying to tease out whether they're moving because their prey moved or they're moving because they can't tolerate the temperature. And I think James could speak to some of his tags that maybe give you a little bit more information on the physiology that will help with that kind of information.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So what Lisa says is absolutely spot on. Sharks have a range of temperatures. A lot of fish have a range of temperatures that they can tolerate, but they've got sort of an optimal temperature where things work best, growth and reproduction and all those things. And as temperatures warm, right, where their current environment is may become unsuitable. And so they need to sort of find another one. And that typically moves kind of a northward type of a movement. And so they're looking for those areas. So whether it's a nursery ground, and these are some of the tags, you can see there's a fin mount on there, and there's a pop-up at the base, and they both tell us great information. And we can use this with all the data that Lisa's collected in the past to really get an idea of how sharks are sort of moving. But that's one picture. And this is the cool part of those sat tags, is that you get an idea of exactly where they're at a certain time. And this was a shark, I think this is Miss Persistence, that we actually caught. This is a poor beagle, our favorite. And you can see what she's doing in it there. You can get really fine scale movement. And how does that change over the years is something that we're very interested in, and what areas are important for her sort of conservation and management.
It's fantastic, because one would think that you can't go out there and collect all that data yourself, right? You have to start to engage with these sort of remote techniques. And it sort of goes to show these things that we just don't know about these animals yet and how they're moving around. But there is some hard science about what we do know, and that's specific to these creatures.
It's also putting old technology with new technology. The one thing about our tagging program, we don't get the fine scale that he gets, but because our tags are less expensive, we get a lot more tags out there. So we can figure out migrations at a larger scale. And then James can come in with his tags and say why they're doing those migrations, whether it's temperature or whatever it is. So it's a good combination of old and new techniques.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, because it's not so much the older techniques per se, but the longevity of those techniques. So Lisa has data from the 60s, right? And I think she had just started working there. Wasn't that true, Lisa? Was it something like that? I can't remember. But anyhow, that information, basically, you have to have it. So programs like hers are essential to this process. Like they have to continue to go on, and hopefully, that will happen. And that's why it's so important to do the things that she's been doing.
And this picture right here that you were just showing, that exemplifies something. What you see me doing on that trip was injecting a poor beagle with tetracycline. Okay, so we tagged this fish, we measured it, we injected it with tetracycline, which marks the backbone, and it gives you a time mark on the backbone. So when that fish is recaptured, we can count what we call band pairs, kind of like rings on a tree, past where that tetracycline mark is, and relate it to how long that fish was at liberty. The longer the fish was at liberty, the better data we get. So we had one of those poor beagles that was out for 14 years. And we still have poor beagles out there that have this tetracycline in them. So these long-term programs are very important for not just where they migrate, but the longevity of the species that we tag.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that's one of the things that I was hoping we were going to get mentioned here, in that all of these efforts are for a reason, right? It's not just because both of you love sharks. It is for the conservation and the management of these fisheries where these animals exist. Great. So let's hit a pause there from actually learning about some of these techniques and the ground truthing of it, and how the longevity is so important to what you're doing today, and actually revert back and let's go to our audience for some of those comments that have come in about some of the favorite sharks, and maybe we can just react to them. And if Lisa and James, I'll give a little challenge for you. When you see the comment come up, give us a fun fact about what you see, about what animal is in there. Let's do a little test.
Okay, that's all you, James.
Of these subject matter experts. So let's see if we can pull any of those up. I think we're looking for them.
Lisa, that one's for you.
Oh, what is bull sharks? Well, thanks, James. Oh, wait, Block Island. Why are they visiting the waters off Block Island? Okay, so they've always been off there. I'm assuming you're talking about white sharks, but we actually have quite a few species that come up northerly on a migration every year. And again, they're following their food, which is following temperatures and their own food. So there's quite a few species that come up. You've got blue sharks, you've got your white sharks, you've got mako sharks, thresher sharks, sandbar, dusky. They're all coming up here to take advantage of the summer off Block Island, just like people do.
Fantastic. We have another one from Priscilla. She's active in this audience. Why are you giving them tetracycline? Because of tagging, etc. And Lisa, I know that you actually mentioned it's because that it deposits something that if the shark is ever recaptured again, you can actually count the rings in the vertebra if you were to collect that sample. And maybe we actually have a clip of you reviewing some of these samples inside of your lab.
Oh, great.
Fantastic one. This is science in action. This is science in action, everybody. Lisa, that was lovely.
Yeah, that was great. So, what we do, if we get a shark recaptured that somebody has died, that the shark has died, we will section it and look at the tetracycline that's in it. What happens is when the tetracycline is injected, it ends up in the calcium areas that are actively calcifying, which in the shark is in the backbone. So it becomes a ring, and when you put it under ultraviolet light, it glows yellow. So you can mark that and then see what's beyond it, and So say the shark was out 10 years, you're hoping that there's 10 band pairs after it. So this is the process of cutting one of these vertebra, apparently. I don't remember this at all. So So how long do sharks live, I guess is the question. Alex, we can't hear you. We have done some other techniques that show that sharks, white sharks in particular, can live over 70 years. Dogfish live over 100, right, James?
I mean, that's what people say, but I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh, then why is that, James?
Just some of the more current data that we've kind of collected and worked on suggests not quite as old for sure. And one of the things that Lisa will talk about too is it's important to use the structure that you can get accurate ages from. And sometimes some of the older studies have used structures that we found to be inaccurate. And that kind of leads into, the thought of, well, even what Lisa's done, what I'm doing, like for my PhD work, which was, just last year, no, that's not true. So, anything my thought is anything that's 10 years old needs to be reevaluated and looked at with the changes in techniques, climate change, all those things can improve what we're kind of investigating. So it's a dynamic sort of research project when you look at it long term.
That's basically the scientific way. Anything I do, I'm assuming is going to be proven wrong in 20 years. Not necessarily by James, but by somebody. But I've spent a lot of my papers, you'll see, are based on showing that things done in the past aren't exactly what we thought. But that comes from new knowledge, new techniques, and new brains that are being focused on these problems. And on the basis of the stuff that was done before, we can bounce off of it to show why it might not be right. So it all builds. Science is building on the generation before. And that's what's great about it. You got to kind of keep your ego out of it and figure, you helped in some way.
Absolutely.
That's so great to hear. That's something that I think is very refreshing and sort of opening up these ideas of what it means to be a scientist and how you look at the scientific field and the research that's collected before you and building upon that. So let's go to another question. I think this one is from Piper and Cole, and it's how can bull sharks swim in both salt and fresh water? James, why don't you take that?
I get the tough one. So bull sharks are amazing. They're a great example of a species that has a very flexible and tolerant physiology. Okay. And basically what it can do when, as a high school student or even a college student, you're always running these experiments where you put like a potato in salt water and you see what happens, put it in fresh water and you see what happens. Well, you put it in fresh water, it expands, right? The cells absorb water. If you put it in salt water, it shrinks because the water gets kind of taken out. Sharks are no different. If you can't control that extra water coming in or extra water leaving your system, then you will die. And bull sharks are really good at controlling that water movement. So when they go into a salty environment, they don't lose it. And when they go into a freshwater environment, their cells don't swell. And so they can get rid of the extra and they can put more in if they need it.
That's absolutely wild. And those sort of adaptations are just a fascinating point about these animals. So, by the way, for some of the favorite comments, we had hammerheads, we had tigers. So you got some fans, James, of yours. We had someone said dogfish. And can you tell us about the dogfish? That is the dog shark. Oh, okay. What is a dog shark? I've never heard of that one.
That's the beloved spiny dogfish.
Okay.
Yeah. Fish and chips in England. It's Lisa and I have been studying it for quite some time. It's a little shark. It's a shark, but they tend to school in these very giant, these huge packs. That's one of the reasons they get their names like a dogfish, because you find them sometimes tens of thousands all at once. And they can be a nuisance for some of the commercial fishing industry. And that's kind of how we get into this. How do we figure out more about the biology?
They are actually an interesting shark biologically. They gestate their young for 2 years, which is longer than most sharks, and they do seem to live pretty old. Whether it's 100 or less is a point of contention, but they're an interesting species.
That's wonderful. So I think here, oh, sweet. And how modern we're getting emojis, shark emojis. Very, very cool. Whale sharks was another one. And I think that's
very cool.
Another very charismatic fish. So I think with that, we can sort of wrap up and sort of head out. But before I did that, it's great that we're talking about the biology here, because James, you showed before the images of the baby sharks in the, is it a womb? You call it the womb? Yeah.
The uterus, the womb. Yeah.
That is unbelievable stuff. And in some other cases, we've actually seen some footage working at the Inner Space Center of a deep sea example of a clip of a shark actually still in its egg case, filmed by a robotic vehicle called Deep Discoverer with the NOAA Office of Ocean Exploration and Research. And if we could show that clip here, I just wanted to sort of play that and show everybody that this is such a rare glimpse of what we can actually see out in the deep sea with exploration. What an epic cue. And so I'm not going to lie here, James. Is this what they call a baby shark? Is this baby shark?
That is a baby shark. Yeah, in an egg case. Very cool.
Real.
Yeah,
real one.
Absolutely. How deep was this? Do you know?
It was. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it was well over like 600 meters or so. So quite deep.
Meters. Wow.
Quite deep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And again, it goes to show that there's these animals. They're all throughout the ocean. The ocean is not obviously just this one-dimensional layer like we look out and we see the horizon line, or when divers go deep as far as they can go. The ocean is this three-dimensional space, which represents the largest livable habitat on our planet. So fantastic.
That's a very good point, Alex. Is everybody talks about white sharks, whale sharks, all the big charismatic sharks, but there's a lot of different species of sharks out there. So look that up and find some exciting little guys, pygmy sharks, wobegons, all those sharks.
Yeah. I think most sharks are like under 5 feet, aren't they?
Yeah. I think maybe even smaller.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's incredible to know. That's something I'm just learning now. And it just goes to show it takes people like yourself who are curious about this, who can then dedicate a career to learning and becoming experts about this, and then to even popping into an ocean classroom and to communicating a little bit about it. So with that, I wanted to thank everybody for showing up today, for providing your comments, for being here with us. I wanted to thank Lisa and James for making some time to kind of poke a little bit at each other and have this great conversation. It's cool to see that, not only are you both professionals and experts in your field, but that you also have friendships that you make in this field as well. And I think that's another great thing about science, is the collaboration aspect. So to close out, everybody, again, if you're on Facebook, follow along and you'll be notified when we have these other episodes. And a point on that is this is actually the first of potentially 3 episodes that we're going to be doing on sharks. So here it is. This is the kickoff of a little series that we're doing here within the Ocean Classroom. And I wanted to thank the team behind the scenes, by the way, because this is not just me, I'm just the mouthpiece. I'm really not doing anything but moving my hands around. There's a team of people behind here that is making this program actually happen before we go live. And the reason why this looks so cool and we can have so much fun doing it is because of their hard work. So I wanted to thank them as well. And again, I wanted to thank the Devereux Ocean Foundation for supporting these and their ongoing support with us. And remember also on YouTube to subscribe, and also write in, if you haven't yet, what other things would you like to learn about with sharks? If we're going to do 2 more of these, well, help us drive it. It doesn't have to be just here in this conversation. You can help drive it with your comments and your questions. And I think with that, we can all wave goodbye, say hello. Sorry for going a little over our 30 minutes, but I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Shark emoji for the win. Everybody out there, thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa and James, again. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.